Hi, Lance. Welcome to the Power Talk show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Thank you for accepting our invitation and joining our channel today. Before we start a conversation, can you tell us a bit about your background and how did you end up into architecture and building?
Yeah, my background actually begins in the middle of the United States about 29 years ago. I'm 42 years old today. When I was 13, I tried farming with my dad. I grew up in between a cattle ranch and a sugar beet farm. Didn't get along with my dad too well back then, and I also just wasn't. I didn't really like the work. It wasn't that I had a poor work ethic or anything like that. It was just I really didn't. I wasn't fulfilled by it at all. So I lasted about a week with him, and then I said, this isn't for me. I would like to try something else. It was my first attempt at kind of getting a job when I was 13. And he said, well, yeah, you got to do something. He was trying to raise children with a strong work ethic and all that good stuff. And so I called up his best friend, Bruce. His best friend, Bruce, was a general contractor and a builder. And I was always drawing, building stuff with Legos when I was a child and wanted to pursue that sort of lane. And I called up Bruce that night and I said, "Hey, I'll do anything if you have a job. I'll pick up garbage, whatever it takes." And he goes, "Great! I just got a big contract. We're gonna do 80 roofs this summer. We're gonna tear off the existing roofs. We're gonna put new roofs back on. We'll do one a day, and you can be my gopher. I'll pay you 7.25 an hour, $7.25 an hour." And this was 29 years ago. And I said, "Awesome. Well, what's a gopher?" And he goes, "Oh, well, you're gonna go for this. You're gonna go for that. When you're done going for the things, then you can get up on the roof and learn how to roof with us." And I was the best dang gopher that Bruce ever had. I had all the trash always picked up. The site was tidy and clean because I wanted to learn how to roof. And Bruce saw some potential in me that he didn't see in his other workers. And so, about halfway through the summer, what he did is he pulled me aside at lunch and he goes, "Hey, how much do you think I'm charging the clients that for every hour of labor that I'm paying you? I pay you 7.25 an hour. How much do you think I'm charging the clients?" And I go, 7.25 an hour. And he laughed at me and I was embarrassed and I didn't understand why. He goes, because it was kind of a setup, right? And he goes, no, no, I'm charging them 3 to 4 times what I pay you. And I go, why? That seems like immoral. That seems like not the right thing to do. And he says, well, here's how it works. And he explained profit, he explained overhead, he explained downtime, he explained insurance, he explained all of the costs that go into employing somebody, and that the reward should be for taking that risk as an employer. You should profit off of this system. And there was the biggest light bulb, one of the biggest light bulbs in my life to ever go off, because Bruce was technically the first entrepreneur that I had ever met. And my mom and dad, like I said, my dad was a farmer. He saved the family farm. I'm very happy, that I got to experience that kind of life. My mom was a dental assistant, still kind of is, but they're not entrepreneurs. And then I also noticed Bruce's relationship with money was vastly different than my mom's and dad's. And it had everything to do with anxiety about money. And so mom and dad had a aversion to money. Like it was a topic of anxiety for them. And Bruce, there was no anxiety about it. So and in hindsight, 20, 30 years later, I then also read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And after I read that book, I went, oh my gosh, I had a rich dad and a poor dad. Like I had that same dynamic. Bruce was the rich dad, my dad was the poor dad. And it had everything to do with their dynamic of money. I remember one particular instance when I was like 12 or 10 or 11, 12, leading up to that first job, where I got to see it firsthand. And that's where it really reinforced, like, oh, this is my mom and dad's relationship with money. Is I had I had AOL was the internet provider of the day, and I had to make a long distance call from my personal computer to get on the internet. I didn't realize it would cost mom and dad a bunch of money. It was about $1,000. Not a big deal. Like even if my children's ran up a bill on that today, like I wouldn't have the sort of anxiety and worry and problems they would have about it. But you would have thought when mom and dad got the bill, the sky was falling, the world was going to end. I remember there was talk about like taking out a personal loan to pay it. It was bonkers. And I never saw Bruce have that. And so he bought himself freedom from anxiety by being an entrepreneur and making more money than my mom and dad did. Money for me isn't about possessions. Sure, I do own property and I own things, but it's about buying yourself freedom from that anxiety. So then at the end of the summer, Bruce says to me, he goes, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I go, "I want to do what you do. How do I become you?" And he goes, "You don't work for me next year." And I thought that was such a mature thing for somebody to say. And I've only realized that in the last couple of years, like he was willing to let go of his best worker so that I could follow in his footsteps. And what he told me is you got to go work for somebody else. Every single summer, you need to go learn a different trade. You need to learn how to do the framing next summer, then the foundations, and all the other things that components that go into buildings. And so I did that for the next about 8 years, and I went to technical school for building construction tech. And I initially actually wanted to be just a builder. And I at the end of my 2 year stint for my associate's degree of building construction tech, then I had another epiphany, and it was this. I was looking at the blueprints. Our capstone project was to, as a team, build a house. And I got to looking at the blueprints, and this word architect popped into my brain because I hadn't really experienced that either growing up in a very small rural town, this profession called an architect. And the light bulb that went off as I said, at 20 years old, I said, if I became the architect too, that I could get the clients first and then I could fold them into building clients. Like it was before the word vertical integration, even I understood what that was. That's what I was saying. So then I applied to North Dakota State University, went to the architecture program, graduated as an architect. And then the third light bulb was this. This is the last one. And it'll sum up my background. When I went to architecture school, another term of a person, a professional, came up, and it was called developer, real estate developer. And there was the same sequence. I went, if I became a real estate developer, then I get paid three times. I can be the architect, I could be the builder, and I can be the real estate developer. And if I end up holding on to that, some of the real estate, then I'm also an investor and I get paid maybe a fourth time and kind of perpetually. So that's my background.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for a brief background. Lance, what is F9 Productions? How did it start, and what is your current target audience?
Yeah, thank you. F9 Productions is my architecture firm. And if you go to LinkedIn, you'll notice my under my name, it'll say serial entrepreneur, and then it'll say architect and then builder, because that's what I consider myself as a serial entrepreneur. I have multiple businesses. I love starting businesses. I love creating them. I love working in them, and it's one of the most creative things you can do is start a business actually. It's just a very interesting problem to solve every single time. So our architecture firm though is my primary business, and it leads everything else like I kind of talked about vertically integrating and sort of the epiphanies and everything. We started our firm 15 years ago at the best time, which I tell everybody. They go, when is the best time to start your business? And they ask me all the time, and I go, in either a great recession or a depression. And they're shocked when I say that. And I go, do you know why that is? It's because you will never be hungrier, your back will never be put further against the wall, and it forces you to be more creative, more nimble, and outcompete everybody else. It's the perfect time to do it. Like financially, is it? No, but it forces you into that corner. And just like coal becomes a diamond under intense pressure and heat, that's kind of the analogy we make. So Alex and I, my business partner, we both, he was working in New York, I was working in Boulder, Colorado. We both got laid off from very poor business owners in terms of how they ran their business. They were much more artists than they were architects. And so then the other thing you'll notice if you go to my LinkedIn is like my preferred pronouns are positive reactionary. Because I tried to, what all those mistakes that those other architects made were like, how can we positively react in the opposite when we create our business? And the number one thing that we try to do is provide the best customer service possible, knowing that we're already going to do the really cool designs. And most architects flip that on their head and they think, it's a design first, customer service second. So our target audience is we do 50% of our portfolio at any time is single family residential, so just homes. It could be low end, high end. We do the whole spectrum. And then we do multifamily stuff like townhomes, apartments, the other 25%. And then the last 25% is what I call boutique commercial and industrial projects for like small businesses. We'll do their new buildings, and we don't build for everybody either. That's the other thing too, is like back to that vertical integration. We'll design for everybody, anybody, But with building, we're very selective because we've set ourselves up to be able to do that.
Understood.
We don't even advertise the construction company really. It's just part of our pitch when we talk about architecture first.
Understood. You're more focused on the architectural part, right? So, how do you differentiate yourself in the current competitive architectural landscape? What are the differentiations that you have?
Yeah. The designs are the designs, right? I mean, if you go look at our portfolio at f9productions.com/portfolio, you'll see that, we don't just do traditional, we don't just do modern, we don't do contemporary, we don't do it, we kind of do the whole thing. We are generalist specialists is the way I like to describe it, which is kind of a contradiction, but I think it's true. Because we do get really good at each individual typology, and we assign certain staff to certain projects because they're better at like a brick house versus a modern house and that sort of thing. The biggest thing is again the customer service. So what we really emphasize is these 9 principles. So F9 has 9 principles on our website, and the one that probably stands out the most that we emphasize is the fourth principle, F4, which is communication. I get calls from clients, potential clients, that are so upset with their existing architect they're ready to fire them because they can't get a hold of them. They can't get an email back. They can't get a text back. They just get ghosted. And that's probably the one that differentiates us the most is our staff is trained to get back to anybody who reaches out to them in the professional setting within 1 business hour. If sometimes it's not possible to give them the response of a fully detailed answer if we're asked a question. And the way to punt that is we say, just answer, "Hey, I see you. I will get back to this in more detail within 24 hours." And then that's sort of the backstop. So it's between 1 hour and 24 hours. And that's the biggest differentiator that I think that has set us apart from everybody else is even our smallest clients who maybe we're just doing a kitchen for them. That's it. Something small. They feel number one.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, how is Nine Lands incorporating new technology advancements like AI, BIM AI? How are you incorporating into your current system?
We use ChatGPT and Grok almost every day for writing, and Gemini too, with because it's linked in with Google now to help with emails, to help with correspondence, and we use it as a polisher. We don't use it as the starter. I think that's one of the things we learned very, very early on. I remember like 3 or 4 years ago when ChatGPT like 1.0 came out, and I was testing it out, and I was like, "Oh man, can it just write a book for me?" And it can't. Like it just can't do it. It just can't do it. And I don't think we ever maybe want it to. So over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, that's what I've really noticed because we actually do a lot of writing as architects. That this is a fallacy that I think a lot of people don't understand is, and it's not their fault. Is like they think we just draw. We think we just draw, and it's like, oh my gosh, the amount of writing we actually have to do, whether it's on our website copies or going after proposals or just emails explaining things to clients and consultants and everything else. And so the biggest tip I could give anybody if they're using ChatGPT or Grok or whatever as a writing tool for you is it actually needs to learn you and how you speak, how you type, how you write, and it has to learn about your company or what you're trying to achieve. So I have now trained my models to like they know my whole background that I wrote myself. And then I've even taken like some of my podcast episodes that I've done or lectures that I've done and used a piece of software called Scribed where it'll translate it to a text. So my whole speech, and then I'll feed it to the AI and it really understands me at that point and it speaks a lot more like me. And then there will be this back and forth dialogue where I'm polishing things up. So the writing component is probably the biggest one. As far as AI and BIM and everything like that, it's still not quite integrated. I think it's coming. We have tried to work with some software developers to help us take away the things that like we not necessarily want to do the more mechanical operations of the architecture firm like drafting, just cleaning drawings up, that sort of thing, where it's like that's not fun, that's not creative, so we can carve out more design time. And I was at just at a recent conference where I spoke with another developer, like a software developer, about that. And that to me, that seems like where the pulse is in the architecture community is that this is what the want is they want to take away those CAD monkey. That's the term, the CAD monkey operations where it's not fun.
So, how do you balance the approach between human led creative design and machine driven creativity design?
What's interesting is the people that are we're getting the entity. So there's usually three entities that form a building project. There's the architect, there's the owner, there's the contractor. We're seeing a lot of owners come to us using AI to help describe what they have in their brain and that they weren't able to do before because they didn't want to learn SketchUp, Revit, BIM, all of these other softwares. And I don't blame them. Like this, it's a learning curve. It costs money. It's you're like stepping into a lane that is not even yours. But they show us all kinds of imagery that is super helpful for us to better understand them and what their concepts are. And then we're adding on the layer of humanism to it. And then going forward in that kind of a way with our expertise. So it's been really I did not expect the clients to be the drivers of it, and that's where we're seeing it.
Yes, it's a good way to move forward actually, because they get the idea and you get the concept and then you can deliver. So, Lance, which project excites you the most? Is it residential, commercial, or boutique?
Right now it's commercial. I change my mind a lot because it depends on what I'm doing. We are in the middle of building our first restaurant. We've designed a few, but we've never had the opportunity to build one. It's a sushi restaurant. I'm really excited about it.
Wonderful.
And then right after that, we have three more that we'll build out this summer. I'm just like, I love learning new stuff. And when I have staff behind me that is also extremely enthusiastic about learning a new typology, some of them aren't. Some of them just want to stay in the same lane. But I am trying to live a life professionally and personally where I don't have many regrets when I'm on my deathbed and know that I've tried everything and especially all the opportunities that maybe God has given me, like this. Because if you would have asked me that same question 2 years ago, I would have said houses, but I wouldn't have expected that, like, oh, most of my building in the now is going to be restaurants over the next 4 to 6 months.
So, as we are on it, can you tell me one such project which is completed, which has been your favorite?
Wow, my favorite is the Eastwatch house. In our residential portfolio online, we, that's just such a special house. And as a matter of fact, it's so timely that I'm talking about it because in 2 days, I'm going to go meet with the owner up at that house. We designed that house in 2013. It was completed in 2017. It's our most famous house. It's been in Dwell magazine. It's been on the cover of Builder magazine. It really was a spearheading catalyst for us to attract clients who wanted very modern, beautiful, kind of mountain-esque homes. But I'm going to meet with that client who just had a baby, and now we're going to do a big addition or a little baby house on the same property in the same style. So that's been my favorite one.
Sustainability and green building is always into conversation right now. So, how do you incorporate green building sustainability into your architecture and designs?
If the number one thing, if given the opportunity, the number one thing that we try to do is we try to properly orient the building as it relates to the sun or other site features. So in North America, where we're at in Colorado, is we always, if it's a brand new piece of it's a piece of land that doesn't have any buildings on it, and whether it's a commercial building or a house or anything like that, if we can orient the building so that it lets in all of that winter sun, which we want to naturally heat up the space, and then in the summer design it so that we're blocking out that hot sun, we try to take advantage of that. And then the way we fenestrate the east or the west sides of the building is we're very carefully orienting where the windows are on those sides of the building because the east sun and the west sun are very harsh because when the sun rises, it's low and it's very direct and then it's beautiful, right? That's where we get the golden hours and the lights in the morning, and then sunset. Everybody loves the sunset. Same thing. It's actually very direct and harsh, so we have to be very careful about how we design that. And then in Colorado on the north side, we're trying to really minimize how many openings we have because in the winter we're going to lose a lot of heat on that side from heating up the building.
Understood. Lance, what is the biggest challenge in scaling a business like yours?
Gosh, the biggest challenge is the expectation versus the reality of if our expectation is providing the highest customer service possible. The reality is the more staff we add into that mix, the more difficult of an equation it gets to do that. And it relates right back to that communication and being nimble on our feet with that. There's two other engineering firms that we've worked with in the past, a civil engineering firm and a mechanical electrical plumbing engineering firm. The mechanical electrical plumbing firm, they started their business at the same time Alex and I did. And it was pretty much three people just like us. And they were just like us, or that they wanted to be in terms of the customer service. And boy, did it win them a lot of jobs. So many jobs that as soon as they got over a staff of 12, I noticed something. They went from a class A firm in terms of customer service down to a class B firm. And I thought, once is an anomaly. Maybe other firms can scale bigger and still provide that very high level of customer service, that nimble customer service. Then the civil engineering firm, one of our civil engineering firms, our favorite ones, same thing. 4 or 5 years ago, they started a firm. Two or three people were at the helm, and they were providing excellent, like a breath of fresh air kind of enthusiasm and nimbleness. And the same thing happened. They scaled too quickly, too much, too fast, got over the number 12 in terms of staff members, and they went to a class B level service firm. So for anybody who's providing professional services, there's something about this number 12 and you being able to manage people in a fast and a nimble way. If that's your goal, you might want to think about limiting your staff size growth and be comfortable with that. Then the equation becomes different, right? So if I reflect back on me then and me and Alex, it's like, well, how do you keep up with like in salaries that have to increase every year while still maintaining a good profit? Then at that point, you're talking about raising fees and trying to attract a certain clientele that will allow you to continue that economic growth while at the same time being comfortable with a basically a stagnant growth level of your staff in terms of numbers.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Lance, one final question. What advice would you give to the young architectures and entrepreneurs coming into your space?
Yeah. Well, for the architects, go pick up a hammer. Go pick up a hammer and please learn how to build something. Just understand what it's like to cut a piece of wood so that you can be empathetic to the people in the field that you're drawing for and how they need the drawings to be for them. Because if the drawings aren't speaking to them, the building might not get built how you want it to be built. This is very, very important. And then for the entrepreneurs, I just want to reiterate, if you're thinking about starting a business and you're worried about the economy because you're like, is this the best time? The best time is when it's the worst time in the economy. I'm telling you, it's how most people get forced into a place they don't even know they need to be.
Wonderful. That's some great advice, Lance. Thank you so much for your time, joining us and giving us your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.